What could possibly be a better win-win situation than your dog loving healthy food, huh? We all want our dogs to be as healthy as possible, and that means we need to feed them healthy, nutritious food. What we humans are told is the healthiest for us isn't necessarily what we think tastes the best. However, dogs absolutely love food that's healthy and nutritious for them. And I'm not talking about broccoli here. In this series of videos, I'll show you a variety of foods that's healthy and nutritious for our dogs and that dogs absolutely love as well. I'll show you why it's healthy and tips on how to include it in your dog's diet to give your dog an extra boost of both taste and nutrition and hopefully help your dog live a happy, healthy, long life. Let's look at healthy food dogs love number 1. Hi, I'm Ingrid, the Norwegian Viking behind Viking Dog Girl. I hold a certificate as a pet food nutrition specialist, and I'm here every week sharing all things dog. Dog nutrition, dog health, dog lifestyle, basically living the best life with your dog. And I do things the Viking way, which means no sugarcoating and no BS. I'll give it to you straight because I want you to have the best chance of making your dog happy, healthy, and getting your dog to live as long as possible. So, what is that first food that is healthy, nutritious, and that dogs love? It's eggs. Now, eggs is an amazing food because it truly is a whole food. It contains everything necessary to create life, to create a whole chicken, in the case of a chicken egg. Eggs are super nutritious. They contain a lot of protein, vitamins, minerals, and what a lot of people don't necessarily know is that they're very high in fat, though it's good type of fat, so don't worry. Now, there's one aspect that a lot of people forget to look at when it comes to which foods are nutritious for our dogs. Because it's not enough for the food to contain a lot of nutrients, because in a lot of cases, those nutrients may simply not be digestible and absorbed by the dog's body. So in addition to looking at how much nutrients are in a food, we also need to look at whether or not those nutrients are bioavailable to our dogs. Bioavailability is basically a measure of how much of those nutrients our dogs can actually digest, absorb, and make use of in their bodies. And this is so important and often completely overlooked. As I like to say, nutrients mean nothing to our dogs if they can't digest, absorb, and make use of those nutrients. Now, when it comes to eggs, most of those nutrients are highly bioavailable to our dogs, which is great. Now, egg whites actually does contain something called avidin, which is a kind of protein that actually can bind with biotin, which is a type of B vitamin. And when avidin binds with biotin, it may make us unable to actually absorb this B vitamin, biotin. So basically, avidin may make biotin less bioavailable for us and possibly our dogs as well. Cooking the egg may help a little bit, though not completely when it comes to this. Now, there is quite a bit of biotin in egg yolks, so this won't necessarily be an issue. Also, especially because biotin is available in a lot of other foods as well. Plus, if you're feeding eggs to your dog, it's usually a smaller part of a dog's diet. Usually you feed a lot of other foods that should have enough biotin already, so it really shouldn't be an issue feeding eggs to your dog. Now, before we go into tips on how to feed eggs to your dog, how often, that sort of thing, I just want to mention something about cholesterol. For quite some time, we were basically told not to eat too many eggs because of the high amount of cholesterol in eggs. Especially because a diet high in cholesterol was assumed to be a cause of coronary heart disease. However, studies show a very different story. One article from 2016 looked at studies on eggs and whether or not there was an association between eating eggs and a higher or increased risk of coronary heart disease and stroke. What they said in their conclusion was that overall, the results of this meta-analysis do not support an increased risk of coronary heart disease based on daily egg consumption and indicate that intake of up to 1 egg daily may be associated with reduced risk of total stroke. So really, there doesn't seem to be any reason to think that eating eggs would lead to increased risk of coronary heart disease, and maybe it would even have a positive effect when it comes to stroke. Here's the thing. The amount of cholesterol that we consume doesn't really have that much of an effect on the amount of cholesterol we measure in our blood. The reason is that the amount of cholesterol that our body produces depends on how much we eat. So if we eat more, our bodies will produce less. If we don't eat as much, our bodies will produce more. In fact, the limit of the amount of cholesterol that we consume was actually removed from the dietary guidelines in the US in 2015. There used to be a limit of how much they said we should be eating based on those guidelines. However, now they just say adequate evidence is not available for a quantitative limit for dietary cholesterol specific to the dietary guidelines. Bottom line, there really doesn't seem to be any reason we shouldn't be eating eggs and that our dogs shouldn't be eating eggs, because eggs are super nutritious. Now let's look at tips on how to feed this to your dog. By the way, if you enjoy this kind of no BS, give it to you straight kind of videos on all things dog, then make sure to click that subscribe button and turn on notifications to follow my channel for more tips and tricks. And remember to follow me on Instagram at VikingDog. Now, what type of eggs can you feed your dog? Pretty much any egg. It can be chicken eggs, duck eggs, quail eggs. You can buy them at the supermarket, farmer's market. Maybe you have some access to farms yourself where you can go straight to the source if you want. As with anything else, the more natural, the better. That goes for instance, in the case of the chicken eggs, how well the chicken has been living, so the lifestyle of the chicken, what the chicken ate before having the eggs, and also how the eggs have been treated. For instance, in a lot of supermarket eggs, the eggs themselves may have been sprayed with some chemicals. Now, that doesn't necessarily affect the egg yolk and the egg white, so if you're only feeding egg yolk and egg white to your dog, that doesn't necessarily need to be a concern. However, some people also feed the egg shell to their dogs, and in that case, it may be better to choose an egg that you know for certain has not been sprayed with any chemicals. Now, how do you feed these eggs to your dog? You can feed them cooked or raw, and you can either feed it to your dog whole, though if it's the first time your dog is eating egg, I would definitely crack it open and maybe leave out the shell to begin with. If you do want to feed the shell to your dog, one way of doing it is to simply put the shell itself, only the shell, in a blender food processor, and so that you mix it to become basically a powder that you can sprinkle over your dog's food, for instance. Eggs may be fed on top of your dog's food, though you should then take out a little bit of your dog's food so that you don't necessarily feed more in general, or also, it may also be fed as a snack, for instance. Now, the egg may be fed on top of your dog's normal diet, if you want, on top of the dog's food, or it may be fed as a snack. Just remember to take out a little bit of your dog's food in this case to account for the extra food from the egg. Actually, if you boil the egg and cut it into small pieces, it may even be used as training treats. Now, as with any food that you want to introduce to your dog's diet, if it's very different from what your dog is used to eating, the best thing is to start slowly. So try with just a little bit egg, for instance, try with a quail egg, or if you have a larger dog, you can try with a whole egg. Just try with one egg and then wait a couple of days just to make sure your dog's digestive system processes it nicely, and then you can start feeding maybe on a more regular schedule. I would suggest feeding one egg to your dog maybe 2 to 3 times per week. If you have a tiny dog, quail eggs might be the better option to make sure that the egg doesn't take up too much of your dog's total diet. Or you can whip up some eggs and separate them as well. Now, if your dog currently has a weight issue, as in if your dog is currently overweight, you might want to make sure you don't feed too much eggs in combination with dry dog food or dog food that contains a lot of carbs, which is the case in dry dog food. Fat plus carbs together is the worst combination when it comes to gaining weight. As in, it's the combination that will make us or our dogs gain the most weight. The reason for that is basically that, well, in a very simplified explanation, the carbs make us secrete the hormone insulin. The insulin basically blocks our fat cells from releasing fat. At the same time, the fat that we're eating or our dogs are eating goes straight to our fat cells to be stored as fat. So basically, this diet will help the dog gain a lot of fat while at the same time blocking the body from releasing that fat to be burned as fuel. Now, for dogs that do have a weight issue, it may be a better idea to, instead of cutting a lot of fat, it may be a better idea to try to limit the amount of carbs in the diet, because low carb diets have been shown in a lot of different studies to be a better option for weight loss, in us humans at least, than low fat diets. And if you want to feed a low carb diet to your dog, basically all dry dog foods are out of the option, because dry dog food really requires quite a lot of carbs, or specifically starch, in order to be produced because of the process of creating these bits of kibbles. Now back to the egg. Eggs are amazing. They're super nutritious. They can be quite cheap, and it's so simple and easy to feed to our dogs. What we feed our dogs has such a huge impact on their health and longevity. This is very important. The type of food, the quality of the food that we feed to our dogs can actually determine how long they will live. We know whole food, real food, is the healthiest for us. It simply makes sense that it is the healthiest for our dogs as well. It's what's most natural for our dogs to eat. They don't know how to cook themselves, so it makes a lot of sense for them to eat whole food. And including eggs in your dog's diet is an amazing way to include some whole food. If you want to take it a step further and feed a completely all natural, nutritious whole food diet to your dog, then you might want to consider feeding a homemade diet. And if so, then I suggest that you check out the Viking Dog Diet system. This system is based on science, and it shows you step by step how to feed a all natural, super nutritious, healthy and delicious diet to your dog in a super simple way. It includes meal examples and even step by step how to transition your dog meal by meal to this new diet. As mentioned, what we feed our dogs can have everything to say when it comes to their health and even how long they live. If you want to check the Viking Dog Diet out, I suggest you head over to vikingdogdiet.com right now. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if so, then give it a thumbs up and make sure you share it so that more dogs out there can enjoy some more whole foods. Give your beautiful dog a hug from me, and I'll see you next time. Bye.